Salutations, test subjects. Today we are taking a look at the pink lizards and their combative capabilities. I am Sub-Iterator, Intelligible Factors, and this is, in fact, the first installment of the lizard games. If you're wondering about the current whereabouts of a certain prime iterator, guided lateralization dosimeter, know that she is currently indisposed after a sudden and catastrophic security breach that has led to the suspension of all ongoing experiments until the issue has been rectified. Our first test subject is ID 7791, codename Sawblade. The codename is not a factual statement of this test subject, as it possesses neither saw nor blades of any kinds on its being. In fact, its aggression level is exactly 0.00. It does, however, have a sympathy level of 1. By this metric, it is a fact that this pink lizard is very cuddly and a suitable companion for individuals in need of therapy. Unfortunately, our civilian psychology and mental health sector has been discontinued after the mass ascension event. Therefore, there are no individuals in need of cuddling or therapy, rendering the cuddle factor obsolete in its entirety. Fortunately, for this test subject, they will be given a new purpose by undergoing the following series of tests, which will provide potentially critical data that could aid our endeavors to solve the great problem. The first test is the hunting aptitude test. Here we will observe the test subject's ability to acquire mobile biomass in the form of 3 lantern mice. It is a fact that lantern mice are as noisy as they are vibrant, much to their species' detriment. However, as we can see here, a single lantern mouse may not be enough to entice the lizard into initiating a hunt, thus 2 more lantern mice are to be added into the test. The amount of noise generated by 3 lantern mice mingling is enough to guarantee that the test subject will investigate. Most of the time. And with that, the first test is complete. The test subject is only required to catch 1 lantern mouse in order to pass. Now it is time to tally up their score and go over how well they did. It is a fact as plain as rain that subject Sawblade had a low score in initiative, as it required intervention in order to prompt it into starting the test. Subject Sawblade had a standard score in motivation. They remained engaged in hunting mode as soon as it was made aware the prey was within its vicinity. This is to be expected for the species and is a sign of good health. However, their focus was particularly poor, as they seemed to be incapable of sticking to one target at a time, and displayed poor judgment on which lantern mouse would be easier to catch. The combining factors makes Subject Sawblade's overall score. C-? Mediocre? 49. Wait, which scoring method are we using for these experiments? Never mind, the test must continue without further delay. Let us move on to our next test subject, ID 8107, codename Rockstar. Again, the codenames of these lizards are purely subjective and often arbitrary. It does not, in fact, reflect the lizard's abilities or level of cognizance. This lizard also possesses a low aggression level identical to the previous test subject. In fact, their stats are very similarly aligned to that of the previous test subject with little variation. We shall see how much the variable affects the outcome of the test. How interesting. It appears that the test subject is emitting a peculiar chirping sound upon identifying prey. This behavior is uncommon, but it's been observed across different species of lizards. It is unknown as to why some lizards emit these chirping calls, but theories suggest that it may be an expression of excitement. Congratulations, Rockstar completed the test significantly quicker than Sawblade. The test subject's initiative fell within expected parameters for the species, investigating the sound soon after the lantern mice were introduced to the test chamber. Motivation was also up to standard expectations. And the test subject's level of focus was high. They remained locked onto their target with no variation in their pursuit of said target until the prey was caught. The culmination of the data collected makes Rockstar's overall score a model example of pink lizard capabilities, an efficient hunter, a 10 out of 10, a solid 8. Next we have ID 7033, codename Kibble. This pink lizard has the lowest stats out of all the test subjects we have for this experiment. They also have the most unique scale arrangement for their species. Normally, pink lizards possess spiny neck frills, but this individual has a knobbed spine and frills fanning outwards from its tail. This is unusual for pink lizards, but not entirely unheard of, just rare and more commonly seen among other lizard species. Oh, goody. Here we have a clear example of how to tell when the test subject has decided to switch targets. Notice the direction the lizard's head points to before the rest of the body moves onto the new course of its pathfinding. The lizard may have determined that the lantern mouse on the left was too far out of reach and predicted that the lantern mouse on the right would be easier to catch. And now that Kibble has completed the test, we shall tally up their score. Their initiative score was high, as the test subject preformed an action labeled as a back trundle, as the lizard moves toward the source of the sound so fast that its hindquarters get in the way of its attempts to change course. Motivation has been scored as indecisive. The test subject displayed delayed reaction time when attempting to capture prey. This delayed reaction coincides with the test subject's level of focus, which is considered low as they switch targets constantly while simultaneously hyper-focusing on a particular target when more optimal prey is available. This sets Kibble's overall score to a below standard ruling. Typical behavior, but otherwise unremarkable. For our final test subject, this is ID 2627. Codename Scraggle. This test subject has the highest stats out of all the other test subjects and should provide valuable data. I do not understand what the note regarding this test subject is meant to be referring to. This Scrungly may be in reference to some internal document from when the prime iterator was initially setting up this experiment, before the security breach forced her to focus her attention elsewhere. Wow, that was probably the fastest time yet. Initiative was high. The test subject did a similar maneuver to the last test subject, back trundling in as soon as they detected their quarry. Motivation, however, will have to be marked down as unknown, since it is unknown as to whether or not the test subject had lost motivation after losing sight of the prey, or if the test subject was merely waiting for the right opportunity before continuing their pursuit. And their focus is not too narrow, as they are easily able to switch targets when the opportunity for an easier meal arises. This sets their overall score as freakishly adept. With no other additional notes, we shall move on to the next phase of this experiment. The Brawling Aptitude Test is where our first test subject will be paired against the other remaining test subjects in a one-on-one sparring match. Test subject Sawblade will be competing against test subject Rockstar for the first round. Pink lizards are notorious for their rivalry towards each other. Observe, despite the fact that both test subjects have a 0.00 aggression stat, this fact does not apply to their willingness to compete with each other should they be forced into a rivalry skirmish. Though, the aggression stat may have an effect on whether or not the combatants are willing to mortally wound one another. As we can see here, it is a fact that both test subjects have beaten the ever-loving stuffing out of one another, and now both are attempting to flee from combat and retreat into the safety of the nearest den. This round is a tie. Although, technically, Rockstar retreated into the den first, so we could also say that Sawblade is the winner of this round by default. I will mark it down as a win for Sawblade, even if the details do not make this verdict entirely factual. For the second round, Sawblade will now compete against Kibble, since Sawblade was technically the winner of the last round. Do not worry about any potential unfairness. It is a fact that test subjects were given revival injections so that all wounds from the previous round have been healed. It appears that Sawblade has decided to kill their opponent this round. An interesting turn of events for a lizard with a 0.00 aggression score, especially since Kibble had an aggression score of 0.04. This is highly discombobulating, almost illogical even. Now it is time for the final round, Scraggle versus Sawblade. It takes a moment to get the test subjects to acknowledge each other, which is unusual, since in the previous rounds, the test subjects were eager to fight one another. However, it almost seems as if Sawblade is trying to escape from Well, that was certainly exciting, but not unexpected, given the fact that test subject Scraggle possesses the highest stats out of all the— Wait, what?
Tested again.
Hang on, you're not supposed to—
Redo the round.
That scruggly lizard cannot be allowed.
All right, we shall have a rematch. Please don't—
When I get my hands on all of them.
doing the rematch now. All right, clearly that settles that. We shall be concluding this episode of the Lizard Games. Next time, my associate and fellow sub-iterator, aggregating Rictus Sentinel, will be hosting the second episode of the Lizard Games, featuring the Green Lizards.